It was a bright Monday morning in Lagos. 7-year-old Daniel, the only son of a wealthy CEO, sat quietly in the back seat of his father's black SUV. His father, Chief Okeke, was taking him to school as usual. Daniel's school bag sat neatly beside him, and in his hands he held a small food pack his mother had carefully prepared for him. As the car slowed at the traffic light, Daniel's eyes caught sight of a little girl. Sitting on the pavement, her clothes were torn, her hair rough, and her eyes carried the kind of sadness no child should. No, she sat with her knees drawn to her chest, begging silently with nothing but her empty hands. Daniel leaned forward. "Daddy, stop the car, please." Chief Okeke frowned, surprised why. "Daniel will be late for school. Please, Daddy, I just want to do something." The driver pulled over. Daniel quickly stepped down. Clutching the food pack in his small hands, the girl looked up at him, startled. "Here," Daniel said softly, stretching the pack toward her. "This is my food for school. You can have it." The little girl's eyes widened in disbelief slowly. She reached out and took the food, whispering, "Thank you." Chief Okeke had stepped out of the car by now. He looked at the girl more closely. "My dear," he asked gently, "where are your parents?" The girl lowered her head and replied in a trembling voice, "I don't have parents. I stay anywhere I can find." For a moment, silence hung in the air. People passed by, some staring, others rushing on. But in that instant, something stirred deeply in Chief Okoke's heart. He placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder, looking at his son with pride. "You have done a good thing today," he said softly. The girl hugged the food tightly, her tears falling onto the pack. Daniel smiled at her, a smile full of innocence and kindness. Chief Okeke knew this encounter was not by chance. As they drove away, his mind kept returning to that little girl sitting by the road with no one to call her own. And in his heart, he whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." That night, Chief Okeke could not sleep. He kept seeing the face of the little girl. Daniel had given his food to her. Eyes were too old for her age, eyes that had seen hunger, loneliness, and rejection. At breakfast the next morning, Daniel asked quietly, "Daddy, what will happen to that girl? She has no mommy or daddy. Can't we help her?" Chief Okeke looked at his son. For years, he had been busy building his company, chasing profits, and sitting in boardrooms. But in that moment, his 7-year-old child was teaching him something far greater than money: the value of kindness. "You are right, Daniel," he said with a sigh. "We must help her." That afternoon, on their way from school, Chief Okeke told the driver to take the same road. And there she was, the little girl, sitting under the hot sun, still clutching the empty pack from yesterday as if it was her most precious treasure. When the SUV stopped, Daniel jumped out first. "Hello," he said gently. "We came back for you." The girl looked up, frightened, as if she thought they would chase her away. But Chief Okeke knelt down beside her. "My daughter, what is your name?" "My name is Amara," she whispered. "Amara," Chief Okeke repeated softly. "From today, you will not suffer alone again." Daniel took her hand, and for the first time, Amara smiled, a shy, trembling smile, but a smile filled with hope. Chief Okeke opened the car door and said, "Come with us. You are part of our family now." As the car drove away, Amara leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder, whispering, "Thank you." Daniel smiled brightly. "Don't worry. You will go to school like me. You will eat good food every day. Daddy will take care of you." Chief Okoke's eyes grew wet as he listened. He had given his company many gifts, but none was greater than this lesson from his little boy. True wealth is not in money, but in kindness. That night, as Amara sat at their dinner table for the first time, she looked around the big house in wonder. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. She felt loved. And in her heart, she whispered a prayer. "God, thank you for sending me this family." The morning sun streamed through the curtains of the Okeke mansion. Amara woke up in a soft bed for the first time in her life. The sheets were white and clean. The room smelled of lavender. and a new school uniform lay neatly folded on the chair. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Just a few days ago, she had been sleeping on the cold streets with an empty stomach. Now, she was being prepared for school like other children. Daniel rushed into her room, already dressed in his uniform. Amara, hurry up, we'll be late. Today is your first day at school. Amara smiled shyly, holding the uniform close to her chest. Daniel, are you sure they will accept me? I don't know how to read like you. Daniel held her hand firmly. Don't worry, I will sit with you. I will teach you everything I know. When they arrived at the school, teachers and students stared in surprise as Chief Okeek stepped out of his SUV. With Amara by his side, whispers filled the air. Isn't that the CEO's son? Who is that girl with them? She looks so poor. But Daniel held Amara's hand proudly and marched into the classroom. In class, the teacher introduced her. This is Amara from today. She will be one of us. I expect you all to treat her with love and respect. Some children giggled at her old shoes and nervous smile. But Daniel stood up boldly. She is my sister now. Anyone who laughs at her is laughing at me. The class grew quiet. Slowly, some of the children smiled at Amara, and one girl offered her a pencil. At home later that day, Chief Okeek sat in his study, reflecting. For years he had been known as a powerful businessman, feared in boardrooms and respected in the city. But now, people were talking about something different. How the mighty CEO had stopped on the street to rescue a poor orphan girl. Newspapers carried the story. CEO's son inspires father to adopt street girl. But for Chief Okeek, the real story was simpler. His son had opened his eyes to true humanity. That evening, as Amara sat at the table doing her homework beside Daniel, Chief Okeek smiled and thought to himself, this little girl's life has changed, but so has mine. But for Chief Okeek, the real story was simpler. His son had opened his eyes to true humanity. That evening, as Amara sat at the table doing her homework beside Daniel, Chief Okeek smiled and thought to himself, this little girl's life has changed, but so has mine. Weeks passed, and Amara began to settle into her new life. She learned to read slowly, her handwriting shaky but full of determination. Every day when she put on her school uniform, she looked in the mirror and whispered, I am no longer the girl on the street. I am somebody now. One Saturday morning, Chief Okeek decided to take Daniel and Amara along with him to the company's charity outreach. The event was always formal speeches, photographs, and donations, but this time felt different. When the crowd gathered, Chief Okeek stepped up to the microphone, but instead of talking about business or wealth, he told the story of his son's small act of kindness. My 7-year-old son saw a hungry child and gave away his own food. That simple act opened my eyes. That child is Amara. And today she is my daughter. True success is not measured by money, but by how many lives we touch. The crowd went silent. Some had tears in their eyes. Amara, standing beside Daniel, felt her cheeks grow warm. From that day, the story spread across the city. Newspapers, radio stations, even church sermons carried the tale of the CEO's son who gave away his lunch. Soon, something began to happen. Ordinary people inspired by Daniel and Amara's story started looking at the children on the streets differently. A market woman gave free fruit to hungry children who passed by. A taxi driver offered rides to orphans trying to get to school. Families who once walked past beggars without care now stopped to share food, clothes, or even a smile. It was as if a seed had been planted and that seed was growing. One evening, as Amara and Daniel played in the garden, Chief Okeek stood at the balcony watching them. His wife came beside him and asked, do you realize what has happened? Yes, he replied, his voice soft with emotion. One act of kindness has started a movement, and it all began with a small boy's heart. Amara laughed happily in the garden, her voice carrying into the evening. It was the laughter of a child who once had nothing but now carried the promise of tomorrow. And in that laughter, the entire city found hope. Months passed, and Amara was no longer the timid girl who once begged on the streets. She was now a bright student full of laughter. sitting beside Daniel every morning in school. But life was not always easy. Some people still whispered behind her back, saying she did not belong in a rich man's house. Others doubted she could succeed in school because of her poor background. Amara felt hurt at times, but Daniel always reminded her, "Don't listen to them. You are strong, you are smart, and you are loved." Slowly, Amara proved them wrong. She worked hard in her studies, won her first prize in class, and even stood on the assembly stage to read aloud. The same children who once laughed at her now clapped for her. One evening after dinner, Chief Okik gathered the family. He looked at Amara and Daniel and said, "My children, you have taught me something greater than all the riches in this world. The lesson is simple. When you give love, you receive even more love in return. When you lift one child, you lift an entire generation." Amara smiled, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Daniel hugged her tightly and whispered, "See, I told you we are family forever." And so, the story of a 7-year-old boy's kindness ended with a new beginning for Amara, a life filled with hope, love, and purpose. Years flew by like the wind. Daniel and Amara, once two little children holding hands on the street, were now young adults standing proudly in their graduation gowns. As their names were called, the hall erupted in applause. Daniel graduated as the best in business administration, and Amara as the best in social work. Tears filled Chief Okik's eyes as he watched them walk across the stage. The same little boy who once gave away his food, and a little girl who once begged for bread, were now shining like stars. After graduation, Daniel turned to Amara with his familiar smile. "Remember when I gave you my lunch that day?" Amara laughed softly. Yes, that was the beginning of everything. Together, they decided to start something new, a company not just for profit, but for purpose. They called it Hope Foundation Group. Its mission was simple: to create opportunities for street children, just like Amara once was, so that no child would ever feel forgotten in. Within a few years, the company grew. They built schools, provided scholarships, and gave jobs to the less privileged. People from all over the country admired their work. Newspapers carried their story once again, this time with the headline, "From the Streets to Success, Daniel and Amara Build a Future for Thousands." One evening, as they sat in their office overlooking the city, Amara whispered, "Daniel, do you know what happiness is?" He turned to her and replied, "Yes, happiness is not just about what we achieve for ourselves, but what we give to others." They both smiled, knowing their journey had come. Final lesson from this story: true wealth is not in money, but in kindness. No act of love is too small. Even a little child's gift can change the world. When we help the poor and forgotten, we plant seeds that grow into hope for everyone. If you have watched this video to the end, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so more people can learn the power of love and kindness. Because one story can touch a heart, and one heart can change the world.